Hello, and welcome to Totally Schway, a podcast about the DCAU and whatever the hell else I want it to be about. My name's Mary.
And my name is Luke.
I almost forgot my name there for a
I
moment.
know. That's why I said mine slowly. I had to think. My brain didn't catch up.
So, how do we start this episode? Because I'm used to starting these episodes at 6 o'clock in the morning, and today we're doing it at 6 p.m.
Usually you ask me if there's any DC animated universe related news. But do you know what? I don't think there is.
I have some news.
No.
Yeah.
Go on then.
I bought a new planner.
Oh, wow.
I know.
I suppose one thing we could say is that it's October.
Yeah.
And there is a Batman the Animated Series colouring book coming out.
Yes, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, with illustrations by Ty Templeton. It hasn't arrived yet. I think it's coming out towards the end of the month.
I
Possibly?
think it's the 27th. I'm
Possibly.
probably wrong, but hey-ho.
But the same company released an X-Men colouring book, which Mary ordered.
Sorry, what are you talking about?
Yeah, the X-Men colouring book.
Who?
Yeah, well, I must admit, it's been a little bit of a disappointment because they reused some of the images several times. So there's like 90 pages, but there's probably only about, 50 original drawings in there, maybe?
And this is why there are reviews on Amazon.
I know, I need to do one to express my dissatisfaction. But hopefully, the Batman the Animated Series colouring book is very nice.
Shall we get on to today's episode?
No.
Okay, so we're going to get on to with today's episode. So today's episode is about Mudslide, the Batman the Animated Series Season 1 episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I have something to say before we actually get into the nitty-gritty of the episode. So you bought the series on YouTube.
Well, there's a funny story. So I bought the box set, the Blu-ray box set.
Yeah.
And it came with a digital copy with some video platform service I'd never heard of before over here. They went bust within a year.
Ooh.
And so Warner Brothers gave everyone YouTube copies instead.
Oh, okay.
However, they are in standard definition. And you're about to say something else that's funky about them.
So Luke had just finished up his last meeting of the day, and he still had the door shut to where his little office is. And I had just started playing it, and he hears it at the same time as me. It's not the Batman the Animated Series, what we're used to, title sequence music. It is the Batman Superman music.
Yeah.
When they started to combine the episodes.
Yes, the that one.
I have to say, I don't like. I mean, I don't mind that, but I don't like the fact that they did that to this, because I was looking forward to seeing that. But another thing that grinds my gears. Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
You're going to talk about it being labelled as Season 2.
Yes.
No, well, that's the DVD's fault.
It's listed as Season 2, Episode 24.
Mm-hmm.
Guys,
yeah,
Warner Brothers. I know we talk a lot because, you're going to hire me one day as just a sit around and look funny type of person. But please, if there's anything that you ever do with the small company that Warner Brothers is, please label the episodes correctly.
Well, they're labeling it according to the DVDs, and I don't know who made the decision to kind of break that first season of 65 episodes. They broke it up into 2.5 chunks and said, well, this 24 is Season 1, this 24 is Season 2, and then Season 3 is the last chunk of it, and the episodes from The Adventures of Batman and Robin. It's peculiar. And just one final thing about that YouTube copy of it, which is an official upload, by the way. It's not like that account that uploads episodes cut into chunks.
I don't like that, by the way.
But they had redone the credits in the style of the new Batman Adventures as well. So they had paid money for somebody to rewrite the credits in that style.
Mm-hmm.
It just blows my mind. I'm like, why would you do that? I don't understand. What? Completely pointless. I'm more upset about it than you are.
So there's something that you should know about my neurospicy mind. is I have OCD, but I have OCD with numbers. It's not necessarily that I need to have things super cleaned and all of that. I do have to have things
Totally.
I do have to have things in my particular order. But when I see something like this, it bothers me because it's not right. It's not just in my head this time either. It is just, it's not right. And it's numbers that I'm seeing. And I'm like, this isn't, like, the entire time I was watching the episode, I was thinking about it. And I'm just like, I know what happens in the episode. I do. But it is not season 2, episode 24. It is not season 2, episode
No.
24.
I can't remember what episode number it is, but it's more like 50 something, like 56 or something like that.
But anyways, let's actually talk about the episode other than the
Other than the weird version that YouTube
our nitpicks about it. Yeah. All right, so let's see. This was directed by Eric Radomski.
Yeah, Eric Radomski, yes.
Yeah.
He's the co-producer with, and he said Bruce Wayne, then Bruce Timm.
Bruce Timm.
Yes.
Brucey T.
And Alan Burnett, I suppose. And he was like his main area of expertise was in the background design. Of course, he was a jack of all trades. I'm currently reading a very extensive book that I'm looking forward to talking to people about more in the future. But it's 800 pages.
He's even borrowing my Kindle.
Yes, I know. 800 pages.
Anyway.
So it's taking me a while. But anyway, they talk about everybody's background and all their roles. And Eric Radomski had experience in every field in animation.
That's
He was essentially a jack of all trades, but he was particularly good at backgrounds. And that's where he kind of focused in on Batman the Animated Series.
Cool. The story was by Alan Burnett and the teleplay by Steve Perry. So someone who went to film school, Luke, that's yourself. Tell us what that means. I know what that means, but let's tell the audience.
So Alan Burnett has an idea for a story. Maybe he wrote an outline for it that's like about a page long, just summarizing the broad events of the episode.
Yeah.
Then he hands it over to Steve Perry and says, make something of this.
Yeah, and that means Steve Perry actually writes.
He typed the whole thing.
Yeah.
He told me that he has it on a floppy disk somewhere in his archives, but he doesn't actually.
Who are we talking about?
Steve Perry.
Oh, is that another name drop?
Yeah, well, Steve Perry was actually one of the first people to respond to me when I sent out like questions and stuff. A lot of people just didn't bother responding, and that's fair. They don't have to respond to me.
But here's the thing. The writers and the creators of this show have been very kind and like very kind to you and very open. And I am so, to be honest, I'm shocked because a lot of shows these days, like if you ask, like okay, I'm watching CSI at the moment, rewatching it. If I were to say, hey guys, Felipe Dabado, can I?
Larry Fishburne.
Oh my God, could you? I bet I bet you Larry Fishburne would be like, yeah. I actually ad-libbed this, and this is how it went. And I was like, you weren't even in that episode. But a lot of those people wouldn't. They'd be like, I don't know who this person in England that says she's Oklahoman and she really wants you to know she's Oklahoman. I don't know what she wants and why. Delete.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the people like Kevin and Alan and Brad and Steve have all. And lots of other people. And Dan.
Don't forget Dan Reaver.
I follow Dan on Facebook.
Yeah, no, you do. Dan's a very nice man, as we all know.
All of these guys seem to be really nice people. And it's not just because they were on like a TV show and they all worked on the TV show. It's because they're DCAUs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's my rant.
Rant over.
Yeah. So, one thing I want to start off with is how this all starts out. Batman says something that a vigilante should never say. It's just like when someone in retail says, it's a quiet night. Batman says, it's a slow night.
Then it all kicks off.
No, it is not.
Can I just add something very quickly before we get into the episode? So, this is actually the second podcast I've been on talking about Mudslide. Years ago during the pandemic, I was on Batman the Animated podcast, Justin Michael's show, to talk about this episode. And it was long before I started making videos and, really, well, not to blow my own trumpet, but tried analysing the episodes in great detail. And it's funny, if you were to go back and listen to that episode, I forget what episode number it is, it was something like 70 or something, it's labelled with the episode title and my name, so you'll be able to find it if you really want to. But I didn't really talk about a lot of the allegory in this episode, and I noticed that your notes don't contain much of the allegory either, but we'll get to that. But that was just a cheap little plug I wanted to make for Justin's show.
Before we we sat down and did this podcast, we watched the episode over, and I mentioned to you, I was like, some of the razzmatazz. And what I mean by that is, yes, we're going to talk about the allegory, but we're also going to talk about other things like the little bits of movie history.
Oh, yeah.
And, just, yeah, there's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is an awful lot going into this episode, and it's only about 20 minutes long, but they don't waste a second.
No. One thing I notice in this, and it's in most of the Batman the Animated Series, is and I've said this like dozens of times, you can tell the creators were fans of like the golden age of Hollywood, and even the silent film age of Hollywood, because there's so many references.
Yeah.
Some in particular in this is the obvious ones, which are Stella.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, Stella Bates, her name is a double reference.
Yeah, with Norman Bates.
Yes, and Stella Kowalski from A Streetcar Named Desire. Yeah.
And then the Norman Bates from Psycho.
Yes.
And I would like to think there is a clip in there from the WB movie.
Was it The Dark Interlude?
The Dark Interlude. Where Matt Hagen's character is in the bed looking in a mirror. There is a film that I am thinking of in particular where Monty Clift is kind of in the same position.
Are you thinking of The Defector?
I think so.
Mm.
And white t-shirt, all of that, and it just reminds me of that. And I don't know if that's what they had in mind completely, but that's what I get. And I can tell that these people get it. Like, I could probably have a good convo with them about this stuff, and that's really odd because people think that I'm kind of like a loser sometimes because
you have a podcast about Batman cartoons. What are they trying to say?
No,
say that to my face.
No, because my favorite movies are pre-1980 for the most part. Mm-hmm. Like my all-time favorite movies, and I can see a lot of my favorite movies just in this episode as well.
Yeah. I mean, they've when I say they, I mean people like Alan Burnett and Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski and Kevin Altieri as well, have all been very open about their reverence for the films of Alfred Hitchcock. And they make a lot of references to his movies whenever they can, including in this episode, as you mentioned with Stella Bates. But yeah, I mean, Clayface himself, I mean, I've done a whole bunch of videos about Clayface, especially including one about this episode entitled "Did Batman Kill Clayface?" Because there is a very common misconception about this episode. So
I'm gonna say this.
Okay.
He didn't, because he comes back.
Well, yeah, ignore that fact. Imagine it's 1995 or whatever.
But if you think about it, Hagen's the one that let go.
Well, he couldn't hold on for much longer.
Yeah, but he's the one that let go even before the fall.
Yeah.
He's the one that let go, like, because Batman gave him a choice prior to this.
He committed suicide, basically. Suicide by Batman, anyway.
Yeah.
But the thing is, so, okay, the whole premise of this episode is his clay flesh is losing its molecular bonding. Yeah. He's falling apart. He's going to die. Stella Bates, his doctor / wannabe girlfriend, she's like a super fan of his that used to work on she was a consultant on one of his movies, wasn't she?
Medical consultant.
Yes. And she has devised a treatment for him that will keep him together using a radioactive element called MP40.
Yeah.
An adaptogenic
isotope,
something like that. Anyway. So there's this notion from people that after Clayface steals the isotope from Wayne Biomedical, Batman comes and turns the machine off and stops the procedure halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's this perception from people that Batman stopped Clayface from turning into a human being.
That's not true.
That is obviously not true, because when Stella demonstrated the healing properties of the MP40, she had a little lump of clay
It was
flesh.
healing the clay, not. It was healing the
bond.
molecular structure of the clay. It wasn't going to turn him back into a human. That's impossible.
Exactly. It wasn't going to turn him back to a human. It was going to enhance his powers.
Yeah.
It was going to make him more dangerous, which is what he wanted.
Yeah.
He goes on about, how he wants to be Matt Hagen again. But actually, that treatment that he was going to get wasn't going to make him Matt Hagen again. It would just make him a more convincing impersonation of Matt Hagen. And he doesn't care about that. He just wants the illusion of it because he's so shallow and he's so
vapid.
Yeah, vapid, absolutely vapid. And I think he's Batman's most interesting villain because he doesn't have any sinister motivations. It's not like he wants to take over the world.
Narcissistic.
Yeah, he's just a narcissist. And he wants people to love and respect him when he's not worthy of it because he's a horrible person. And okay, horrible things happen to him. And he doesn't deserve most of the things that happen to him.
But here's the thing. I don't care if you're a TV character or if this is real life. I'm going to say this, and I am going to say it very clearly. Bad things happen to you in life, but that does not give you the right to become a bad person. You become a bad person by choice.
Yeah, and of course the irony is that he steals this chemical from Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
But Batman, at the start of the episode, had offered to help him for nothing.
Yeah.
And okay, I can understand where he's coming from, like Clayface when he denies Batman's request, when he refuses his help.
Mm-hmm.
Because the last time he accepted the help of a stranger, look how that turned out after he had his face smashed up and Roland Daggett turns up with his face cream, saying, oh yeah, this is going to fix all your problems. He ended up hooked on it, and then he ended up having to essentially murder people for Daggett.
And then 30, 40 years later, look what happens. He turns to Jonah Hex.
Yeah, okay, a little Cape Crusader joke there. So yeah, you can understand why he's perhaps apprehensive about getting help from people he doesn't know and certainly doesn't trust. But the irony is, if he had accepted Batman's offer, he probably would have got that MP40 probably whilst incarcerated, frankly. Batman wouldn't let him get away with his crimes.
Yeah.
But he would also make sure that he didn't die. But because Clayface had to do things his way, and it all just fell apart in front of him, the machine that was kind of pressing him into a mold and keeping him together,
he
smashed it.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to get Batman. He lashed out in anger, and he destroyed the one thing that was keeping him alive.
Mm-hmm.
He grabbed a hold of Batman and shoves him through the door to go outside into the rain. It wasn't Batman going, hey, come with me, let's go outside and we'll dance out there. Nope, Clayface pushed him out there. Clayface was nudging him towards the edge of the cliff. As I said earlier, Clayface was committing suicide.
Yeah.
And he lost his nerve at the last minute and tried to climb back up, but it was too late.
Yeah. And it's not... I don't read the lore that people of people thinking that Batman killed him, but I
lots of people that do.
This suicide, if you will, started long before this night.
Yes.
This slow night. It happened. It started really when he did not take Batman's help.
I would argue.
I mean, even before that, but that's when it was
in this episode, yeah. But I mean, it probably started when he was disfigured and he lost his beauty, and they thought, that's it, his life's over.
Yeah. But that's when it started, Yeah,
yeah.
And it's, it sucks, but it shows. Oh, that is such a thing about this show, is that a therapist, going for their PhD, MD type thing, could do a whole dissertation.
Dissertation.
Not dissertation. Dissertation?
Dissection. A dissertation.
Dissertation. Yeah. Excuse me. I am not a PhD. Not even close. But they could do a whole essay about this show and how this show explains some disorders or some, psychological problems.
There is a podcast called The Arkham Sessions, which is just that, where a therapist, a psychotherapist or a psychologist, I forget her qualifications.
Pardon me.
But she talks about each of the episodes.
Pardon me.
Ultimately, she will say, this villain was traumatized. I'm like,
no
joke. He got blown in half, didn't he? Or he got
need-
smothered in cotton chemicals or whatever.
Is it a lady?
Yeah.
Oh, ladies supporting ladies, go watch that.
Yeah, Arkham Sessions. Check them out.
To check that out. Excuse me.
Yeah, they've been going for quite a while.
Awesome.
God, I wish I could remember her name. I follow her on Facebook. What is her name? Dr. Drea Leamati or something like that. I've butchered it. I apologize.
Dr. Quinzel.
Yes, Dr. Harleen Quinzel.
No, that's awesome.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's psychological depth and richness to these stories, which is why people like you and I sit around and spend so much of our free time talking about them. Even now, 30 years later. Yeah. That's why there are a couple of hundred people listening to this.
Yeah. So,
back to your notes.
Yeah, I did write this, but I just want to tell everybody that I wrote it. I wrote it down. I put Hagen isn't doing so well, and I wasn't just talking about his structure. I was just talking about him in general, and I think we've just kind of you've basically just explained all of that. So
there's also an element of it. So when Stella's watching that movie while she thinks he's asleep, and he wakes up and he goes into a rage and punches a hole through her TV. Steve Perry told me. Yeah, I mean, it's just anger is a secondary emotion. It's something you feel in response to something else, and he feels lost when he's reminded of who he used to be. He feels despair, and so to try and make himself feel big and tough, he punches through the TV.
I always side note, when things like that happen, I understand that people need to release their anger somehow, but I guess it's because I grew up around people that did that or whatever. I think of it as, how like you're supposed to be like, oh my god, they're big tough, they're so angry. I always think of, okay, you've just broken something that was kind of expensive, but like, why did you do that?
Replacing that TV came out of his treatment money. So you have to go rob another millionaire. I'm sorry.
It's like, that was kind of expensive. And are you going to replace that? That's probably why we didn't have a lot of things when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so Steve Perry told me that when he was writing Clayface for this episode, he was thinking of him as being like an Alzheimer's patient or a dementia patient, whose mind is just falling apart and he's just got no control over it. And he also mentioned that he wanted him to be more like
I can see that.
Treated like Frankenstein's monster, like a tragic figure. I don't know if I felt that sympathetic towards him.
I say this, and I'm not one of those people that say, I'm so empathetic. No, I think I'm overly empathetic sometimes. Wouldn't you agree? Especially when it comes to like animals and people that can't really help themselves. I did not feel an ounce of empathy for this character, because this character has put himself in this literal mess.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, he had horrible things done to him as well.
Yeah, but when people give you an option for help, and you do not accept it, or you accept the cream that will disfigure your face willingly. Ew.
I thought you were going to say something like, that's when everything falls apart or whatever. I don't know. Ew.
Yeah, I was just thinking of someone moving. Oh, I think there was like a beer commercial or something when I was younger. Some of you guys might know which one I'm talking about. It was like the bitter beer face. And it was either Foster's or Budweiser's beer. And it just reminds me of that guy's face where his lips are going in or something.
Oh, it's so bitter.
Yeah, and then I don't know. It just reminds me of Clayface because, like, I don't know. His face looks like you could like mold it a little bit.
And a face doesn't normally go in that direction.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it was like photoshopped or something. But
yeah, of course.
yeah,
They didn't really like give someone Renew You and say, right now drink this bitter drink, and he goes.
You never
Tucks his face inside of his head.
I'm Googling this now so I can actually show, because I know for a fact this is not going to be...
I'm pretty sure I've seen the advert for it. I'm pretty sure I have. Oh, here we go. Well, while Mary's typing, God, that was quicker than I thought. Yeah, that's gurning. Oh, no, that is actually a gurner. Yeah, people gurning. Okay, that wasn't what I was thinking of. But yeah, so this whole thing with, we mentioned earlier, the allegory of Clayface. You can absolutely read this episode as being an allegory for the AIDS outbreak in the 90s, in the 80s and the 90s in the US, particularly in the acting community, as Kevin Conroy talked about in his biographical story, Finding Batman, in the DC Pride special from a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Because now, obviously, Clayface was presented as a gay man in Feet of Clay. And
which we love.
Well, Teddy was a very nice guy.
Yeah,
poor old Teddy.
Teddy.
I feel a lot of sympathy for Teddy.
Love Teddy.
For anyone that isn't intimately familiar with those episodes, Teddy was Matt Hagen's boyfriend in that episode. Amusingly, his body double, which just tells you an awful lot about Matt Hagen.
Yeah.
He only loves someone that is like himself.
Like I said, we love Teddy.
Yeah. But in this episode, he's kind of... I think he does care for Stella. He does like her, but he's definitely stringing her along. But this whole his body is basically betraying him, and he is falling apart. He is dying, and he has to take these expensive treatments just to maintain any semblance of normality. And that's very much what it was like in the early days of the AIDS epidemic.
Where they came up with just the cocktail.
Yeah.
Again, I say this so many times. This is a kid's show, but it talked about important things without talking about the important things. And the AIDS epidemic is still going on.
Yes.
But around this time, we were getting more and more information because science was finally sciencing enough to be able to say, oh, hey, this is, it's shit, but we can give you this cocktail that can hopefully help you live a longer life.
Yeah.
And then when the actors started coming out, and actually the very few of them that actually around this time started to talk about it, or they had died from it, it was still really heartbreaking, isn't like, oh my god, death sentence, and a lot of people stopped watching their films.
Yeah, it's true.
And I feel that the creators must have some sort of connection with that, and they must have known in their heart of hearts that some people are just really bad people, and they're gonna give up watching a film because somebody's either gay or they have AIDS or God forbid trans.
Oh my god.
But with episodes like, or with villains and characters like Hagen, I just find it, I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Because like you said, the allegory, but again, this is a kid show. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, you are making sense.
I've been up for a long time.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that Bruce Timm and Alan Burnett were very adamant that they didn't want to make any episodes that were like message episodes. Like how you'd have in the cartoons of the 80s, like, this episode is about stranger danger. And then
the episode,
G.I. Joe would come up at the end.
Guys, don't get into the van.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's what they were talking about. Now, it turns out they actually did make quite a few air quote message episodes, but they were more creative and more subtle about it,
Yeah.
much like this episode. And I just wanted to circle back a little bit on the gay thing with Matt Hagen, because I think it's
The gay
the gay,
thing.
like
Yes, I know.
his characterization as being homosexual is what I'm
Yes.
referring to.
Yeah.
So one of the things I find really beautiful about this episode is, okay, so he gets compressed into this like suit that makes him look like an Oscar. Great. But his dialogue when he is being kind of pressed into this shape of an idealized man is he says, "I can't live like this, trapped in this suit, living on chemicals. It's a nightmare." And he is literally being confined into like a heteronormative representation of himself, and he can't stand it. He can't be his true self, and it's driving him mad. I think it's wonderful. Wonderful allegory about repression, and Stella's the one that's kind of trying to force him into being like heterosexual, and it's just not working for him.
Yeah.
And the message there is that he should be himself. But then again, when he is himself, he's pretty horrible.
He was pretty horrible when he was in the suit too.
Yes, true. He punched through the TV, didn't he, as we mentioned? But when he's out of the suit, one of the most striking visuals from this episode is when he suffocates Batman and like forces him into his own body and won't let him out, and Batman's head is like trying to get out and thrashing around. Very deeply disturbing.
Yeah.
Very horrible, although it's nightmare fuel for a lot of people. This episode didn't bother me, by the way.
Yeah.
But apparently the Mondo Clayface figure that they're doing, it's like 1.5 feet tall. It's the timed limited edition, I have been told. Don't know if this is true, but I have been told that it comes with a swappable body that's got Batman's head coming out of the chest, like from the scene in Mudslide. So goodbye, my pennies, when that comes out. I'll buy 2.
That is not true.
I might buy 2.
No, you will not. No. You will buy 1 and 1 only. And
I'm buying 2.
No, he's not. I
1 to open and 1 to keep in the box.
No.
Then I can put it on your desk, Mary, and go, "I can feel his heart slowing."
I would
Slowing.
Gilly chew it if
No, you would not.
Bet me.
He probably would, actually. Apparently, it's got like a very soft, like, it's made of a soft plastic.
Yeah.
It's got like a metal skeleton on the inside, so it's kind of bendy and flexible.
Oh.
Really gross. Really gross.
Gilly would.
Yeah, he would. He likes to kill them.
Anyway,
yeah.
Enough about that.
Do you want to have any other thoughts on Mudslide? Because I realise I've been talking for ages.
That's fine. I expected it as much. I have to think obviously they're probably never going to listen to this. Some of them aren't even with us anymore.
Yeah.
But I do have to thank the creators of this show, because as someone that is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, I am just so grateful for this, because it wasn't just this TV show, but it was a big part of who I am and how I express myself, and not just my sexuality, but my overall self.
Your identity.
My identity, yeah. Although some might not like, most don't like my identity, and I do mask it a lot. When I watch back this show, I feel less of society's enemy, if that makes sense, because sometimes society makes us, they put us in this little tiny box, and they tell us we're the bad people, or we're the disgusting people, or we're the people that aren't worth their time or energy or anything. And watching Mudslide kind of made me realize, like, well, again, reinvigorate my thoughts on this, is, goddamn, a kids show. Before I even knew what trans was, I just kind of accepted life, like, like, oh, of course you're a lady because you were born a lady. You were just born in the wrong body.
So the reason you're bringing
Yeah.
this up is because of that scene on the subway.
Yeah, and that, but also it's not just the trans thing. It's just Matt Hagen is gay. Like, let's be real. Let's not like beat around the bush. She's gay.
And just very quickly, so to interject, I'm sorry, but when he is Clayface, he's happy being a man and being a woman.
Yeah.
He's gender fluid at this point. So sorry, carry on.
And I love that. But this reminded me of what I mean, I watched this episode many times when I was a kid because it was in syndication, right after school. And anything with Harley in it kind of makes me think this as well. That it's okay to be, you know, part of the LGBTQ. It's okay to be a little neurospicy. It's a little fun sometimes. And it's also okay to not be like everybody else. But what isn't okay is that this particular person, this character, also taught me, along with a few other characters from this show and from X-Men, I don't want to be a bad guy. I don't want to be a bad guy. And I don't want society to make me a bad guy. Although I do feel like that a lot. I know I'm mumbling and jumbling and stuff like that, but my takeaways from this episode, the greatest things I can say about this episode is obviously the allegory, and that particular scene when you mentioned it as well, the kid.
Oh, the little girl says, "Look at that lady, Mommy. She's all covered in mud." And I said to Mary, if a little girl can get somebody's gender right, why is it so hard for some other people?
Yeah, see, I was taught when I was a kid, this scene in particular, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. But the thing is, when I was a kid, I was, my mom especially told us, about the LGBT, and it has always been under my understanding and, science that people are born in the wrong body sometimes. And it's not up to me to say something. I love when people find their true identity. And I don't give a shit about the bullies in the world. Tell them to come over to the Totally Schway pod email. Tell them to email me.
No, don't email us. Go away. Go away. I'm tired of people.
Those bullies. Let me tell you, those bullies won't have a good day. But yeah, anyways, this is why we should always do the podcast in the morning, because I start to rant and rumble and yawn.
So we've been going for over half an hour now. And I know people don't like it when our episodes are over an hour. So do we have any closing thoughts? I have one. So I have a question for you, Mary.
I'll do mine first.
Oh, right. Fine. I interrupted you earlier, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to finish that. I just want to say that I'm really, truly grateful for the creators of the show, because in part, I am partially who I am because of it.
You heard it here first. Clayface made Mary.
No, not just Clayface. It's the entire show. And now, what is your question?
So, okay, at the end of the episode, now obviously Clayface has died. I think it's a beautiful shot where he falls into the water and like this man shape kind of floats to the surface of the sea. And then it just dissipates and spreads out. Now Stella is weeping profusely on her knees as Batman climbs to safety. Batman leads her away. What do you think happens next? Do you think he's taking her to the police going, she helped Clayface steal all that money?
Oh, no. I think he took the isotope of what he could,
the amount that remained.
Yeah, he probably took that to the biochem lab. He probably said, shame on you. Don't do this again. If you do this again, there will be consequences.
If there's another Clayface out there, and you decide to help them, so help you God.
And I think Batman probably thinks that her punishment is in the water.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't think he would arrest her.
Yeah.
I talked to Steve Perry about this, name dropping him again, and he said the time when this episode is set, Batman did not have a good relationship with the police. It's very early in his career, so he would not inform on Stella.
Even if I think even if he had a good relationship with them, I think he would have thought the punishment is in the water.
Mm-hmm. And I would just like to add 2 little notes. So one, the music in this episode is fantastic. Some of the best in the whole series. Well done, Shirley Walker. It's on one of the La La Land Records physical soundtrack CDs. I think it's on the 4th volume, the last one, which is the one that isn't on Spotify or YouTube for some reason, but I've got it. And the other thing I got is during the pandemic, my day job was doing very well, and we would get stipend payments. And I saved up my stipend payments, and I bought an animation cell from Mudslide. And I'm looking at it right now, and it's Batman hanging off the edge of the cliff, and Clayface is like holding on to him as the rock kind of breaks underneath them, just as they're about to tip over the edge.
Let's go to the comments.
That's how you get me to shut up. All right, so the first comment comes from a new commenter named Tony Kim.
Hello.
It says, hot take, John and Hawkgirl shipping was equally cringe as Bruce x Barbara.
Sorry, what did you say?
I know there's been some discourse in the responses there, 10 people, 10 comments back and forth, people arguing about that. Well, you know what? You are entitled to your opinion just as much as anyone else.
Okay, I'm going to say this. This is kind of like how I feel about like Ross and Rachel or whatever from Friends. That's what I'm gonna say. And I don't like the Friends thing. I don't. I just. Ugh. But yeah, I can understand what you say. I disagree, but that's great.
Yeah. Next we have Time Lord Victorious. Hello, Time Lord Victorious. How you doing? Just to say my personal take on the Harley Quinn film, I hope they don't go into all this new stuff about the Joker being mad. I'm not really into it. I like better the Joker pretending he has a mental illness, but he's just an evil person. The first film just encourages the stereotype of mental health stuff. I'm happy if people disagree with me. After all, it's good to debate these things. Yeah, we didn't mention that we went to see the film, did we, Joker Folie à Deux?
He basically just said what we were saying about the comment before, that it's good to like debate these things and have differing opinions.
Yeah. I mean,
the Joker 2, Folie à Deux. I'm not.
Deux.
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 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, etc.
Uno, dos.
Yeah.
I'll say it. I didn't hate it, and I didn't love it. I'm quite neutral about it. Will I watch it again? Probably not. I will listen to the soundtrack over and over again because I absolutely love the soundtrack, so much so that I got the Lady Gaga vinyls, which has now set me on a journey of I know that I'm getting another record player eventually. But yeah, I loved the soundtrack.
Okay, so next comment is from Harry Flew TV, who says, not gonna lie, I'm not as familiar with J-Lass, well done Harry, as the other DCAU main shows, so this episode will probably be a bit spoilery for me. Oh no. I watched a few episodes when I was little, but I don't think it had the same impact on me as BTAS, STAS, and Batman Beyond. I'm going to marathon the day shows from BTAS to Batman Beyond in chronological order. Also, I'm not sure how I feel about the romance subplots in Justice League. I've seen a few clips and it looks cute, but part of me is thinking, for goodness sake, couldn't they just be friends? Because it is possible for men and women, boys and girls, to have platonic relationships without any romance.
What?
But that's just my take. I'm not entirely against romance until writers in films like Disney's roster make it the only thing that defines a relationship outside of family.
Pardon? Men and women can have relationships that aren't romantic and they're platonic?
Plutonic? That sounds radioactive.
No, I agree with you, but I still liked the little bits of romance in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like that, like for instance, Grundy and Hawkgirl had a very lovely relationship that wasn't romantic.
Mm-hmm.
And Wonder Woman, well, anyone but Batman she had a really great loving relationship with. I like that, but I can see where you're coming from.
Okay, next we have Michael Andre Parlon.
Hello, Big Mikey P.
Yes, back on his main account. The suspension is over. Don't know how long this lasted, though.
Yes.
Looks like the sudden binging of the anime Mononoke, because October is coming, and no, not Princess Mononoke. It involves a medicine seller. We'll have to wait. Siding with Harris myself, her victory shall mean the world still has hope, even when there's an east wind coming, quoting Sherlock Holmes, his last bow, probably. English is weird, isn't it? Bow and bow are spelled exactly the same way, and you're supposed to guess how it's pronounced. Anyway, not into musicals. Darn, Luke, you're also not into Music Meister. No, not really, actually. Although that episode of The Brave and the Bold with the Music Meister was kind of fun. No mention of The Savage Time Part 3 being a bit similar to Captain America First Avenger Final Act. Also, it's wild cards. Yes, thank you. As I said during the recording, I think I said this, I usually say this. If I can't remember the name of an episode, I will rely on Big Mikey P to correct me. Mm-hmm. Curious how Season 2 of Justice League works better on air date order than in production order. Confusing, though, considering how production order has benefited BTAS, Batman Beyond, Static Shock, and maybe Superman the Animated Series. 1604. In an aside, I'm fine on how the power couple of Vision of Escaflowne never even once kissed. Meantime, I sure hope the Spider-Verse films Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy stay honorary siblings and not become an official couple. I believe that is unlikely, and I don't like referring to them as siblings based on how they act to each other in that film. But anyway, funny how star-crossed is the first time the DCAU Batman used Year 1 Batman Begins bat-attracting batarangs. Jay McDuffie nicely noticed that during the finale's production. Oh, and surely Bruce voted against Shayera, though hopefully not because of Millerverse DCEU anti-alien biases. Yes. Super Friends, Aquaman, greater than DCAU Aquaman, greater than Brave and the Bold Aquaman. I might have said that. I always get confused by that symbol. I think that is greater than. Anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong, as ever. I really like Vixen, but I'm one who thinks she got offed in the near apocalypse of 09 in the near parallel to Hal Jordan losing Carol Ferris in Justice League Doom. Meanwhile, I'm not into how Justice League Infinity crumbled her relationship with Jon Stewart. If not that, Vixen may be offed in the Rand Thanagar War, possibly shielding Jon and Shayera from buying the farm. Must say, casting Vigilante and Vixen with Firefly and Serenity stars Nathan Fillion and Gina Torres is quite brilliant. Reminds me of how Gargoyles has Star Trek The Next Generation stars and Halo 3 ODST, having said Firefly stars and more. I still think Japanese anime beats Western animation and some live-action stuff on the amount of strong and independent ladies and gals, and that's despite unending opinions on fan service. Yes, I am a fan of the likes of Dirty Pair, Panty and Stocking, and Kill la Kill, but honestly, I never watched them for the raunchiness and skin. Yeah, right. No, it's among others, the unique plot lines, the artful aesthetics, and witty dialogue that justifies their fan bases. I'm getting like some serious deja vu right now. I'm not reading comments from the wrong episode, am I? I don't think so.
No. By the way, I'm gonna give a little secret out. The last section that we filmed, like the main section, we filmed last night at 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are filming the comments at 8 a.m. So I'm actually listening. I am scrolling something on Amazon while listening, but I am listening. And I'm like, you go, Mikey P. You keep going.
Classic She-Ra, The Bionic Woman, Baywatch, and Charlie's Angels just don't feel timeless in comparison. The Tell Me About My Son moment is also the smart call forward to Batman the Animated Series Season 1, Episode 53, Paging the Crime Doctor. Yeah, that's a good reference. Where Bruce chats with Matthew Thorne about his father, Thomas, who was a friend to the latter and also to Leslie Tompkins. And yes, he says, tell me about my father. I think I still feel sad about Batman Returns' Penguin Wake, though. Would gladly rewatch that over Batman Forever's Two-Face, over Hamminess, and Batman and Robin's Schwarzenegger Ice Puns. 56:23, timestamping. 59:54, I think it's Tsukspa then. This isn't helping. Sometimes I use theatre over theatre, depending on mood. Did Luke drink Royal pertaining to orange soft drinks? No, never. And one of those people who may most likely rank Cape Crusader as above X-Men 97, perhaps it's because the former benefits from being a standalone, not slogged by increasingly dated 90s work set in the same continuity. The inverse would be Card Captor Sakura, and more recent Clear Card feels like postscript heresy. Still, time will tell sooner or later. Bruce X Barbara may be a tough pill to swallow, but it should stay strictly canon to anything DCAU related. Just don't go overboard, as seen in the Batman Beyond 2.0 comic unwisely doing its own take. Phantom of the Paradise heard good things about the film, so I'm curious on wanting to watch it. Surprised to hear Mudslide is next. What next? The Adventures of Batman and Robin video game lost episode? No, we stay clear of video games. Don't want to accidentally say something that might offend some people I occasionally work with.
What if you look over on my channel?
Yeah, Mary can say what she likes.
I am a lover of those type of games, so I might do something about that on my channel. And I also might do a playthrough of some video games that relate to Batman in the next coming ones.
Okay, next we have a comment from Teo Jones, whose name rings a bell, but I'm not sure if you've left a comment before. If you are new, welcome. If you're not new, thanks for coming back.
Gracias.
So Teo Jones says, I felt bad for Shayera after John told her he was staying with Vixen. I was also very angry because John doomed his future son from not being born. Now that I'm older, I understand why he did it. He did not want to be forced into anything by destiny. He wants a relationship if the feeling is mutual. It's still heartbreaking to watch, especially as it leaves the fate of Warhawk up in the air. I do feel bad for Vixen because she ended up dying in a spin-off comic which led to John and Shayera finally getting together. In fact, any romance with Vixen in animated adaptations usually ends in tragedy. Case in point, her romance with Bwana Beast in Brave and the Bold.
Spoiler alert! Vixen's dead?
Only in one of those rubbish tie-in comics that isn't connected to the show.
Like, oh no!
No, I mean, the way I treat it, and continuity is it's your own personal thing. You can choose what to keep on board and what not to. But generally, my rule of thumb is if one of the creators from the show is involved, then that comic counts. If it was from people completely unconnected to the show, and a decade later, then it's fan fiction. That's how I view it.
I've read some fan fiction, and let me tell you, after doing a baby doll thing, I will never read fan fiction again.
Oh no! Look. Anyway, next comment we have Lowell Lucas Jr. who says, "Hey y'all, it's totally Schway. Gonna talk with you and whatever we say." Yay! I'm not trying to step on Big Mikey P's shoes, but I wrote quite a bit below. Sorry, Mikey, I did it out of respect. Hey all, just wanted to say thank you for the well wishes. I'm slowly recovering and taking my time at work. That said, hope you all continue to keep up such great content and never end on your fun creativity. Luke, I've shared your Poison Ivy videos with friends and they absolutely love them. Not only the coverage, but the great commentary as well. Hell, they were mesmerized how beautiful she is. But also understand my frustrations with how DC Comics keep giving Pamela a victim backstory versus her independent animated self.
Can I say something?
Always shocks me. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. By the way, I'm very happy that you're doing better and everything is going awesome. But I have something funny to say. Our niece texted Luke once.
Yeah.
Did we say this?
I didn't say it on the podcast. I put it on my Instagram, though. It's very funny.
It's so funny because you explain it.
Yeah, so one of my nieces sent me a text message of one of her school friends, someone she knows at school sent her. She's saying, I just found out your uncle is Serum Lake.
Of all the youngins, they're starting to find out who you are.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? And actually on Facebook, I put a post that when I hit like 10,000 subscribers or something like that. I was like, wow, I can't believe it. Someone that I went to school with said, my son watches those videos. I didn't realize it was you. And I was like, oh, okay. Lol. Anyway, continuing Lower Lucas Jr.'s comment. Mary, love your Vandal Savage video. Gave that powerful caveman a great shout out and deserving of the great video. Thank you. Also, I grew up from a Baptist church, and even though I always know to never judge a book by its cover and practice what you preach, these lessons would be better utilized when you went out in the world and experienced interacting with others. I found some churchgoers would be hypocritical with their beliefs, and I make sure to not act as such accordingly. I had a similar experience. I grew up in a very religious family, and I became very fed up of going to church because they would have the same sermons around the same time of year, and I'd look around at the crowd of people there. Some of them have been going to the church, for decades, and they're all nodding along and going, "Oh, yeah, yeah," like it's the first time they'd ever heard, the Sermon on the Mount, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of some other biblical story now, and I'm drawing a blank. The Good Samaritan.
I'm very grateful that I was raised. I'm not gonna say my grandparents weren't judgy. They were judgy as hell sometimes, but not on big life things. But I'm very grateful and lucky that I was able to not grow up in the church and actually grow up knowing about so many religions and growing up to be taught to respect them, because my stepdad and my mom are the ones who instilled, like, you have to respect other religions, and I'm very grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. So to continue the comment, on to another topic, let's talk about Birdnose and Green Lantern. With Hawkgirl and Green Lantern, I love them. She's literally a warrior angel straight out of Flash Gordon, with a lot of love and care in those muscles. Plus, with Green Lantern's military background, he adds as the straight man to Birdnose's rough and rowdy nature. It's awesome. Literally good cop husband and Wolverine wife. Oh, sure, I feel for Vixen, that other beautiful Amazon, but she's a proud, beautiful woman who could stand as powerful lioness on her own.
Yes.
Men even close to Green Lantern could only hope to catch her beautiful eye. Especially not Buana Beast. Also, Mary, I'm surprised you don't want me in your posse. I'm equipped with a passionate knowledge of media, artistic skills, a power ring, web shooters, and a baseball bat. I'd join you all with Big Mikey P the lot.
Yes. Okay. This is being written down. This is being written down. Warner Brothers, you better watch out, because there's multiple people coming your way to do good work.
Mary's Injustice League is forming. As for politics, my vote's for Harley Quinn pudding. After seeing him in Harley Quinn's show, getting his kids into a better education system, and crazy enough to take on the PTA, he's got my respect. Not to mention a successful bust on Bruce Wayne. All hail pudding. Yeah, Harley Quinn's Joker was quite funny. Next we have David Carney, who says, I'm really interested to see how Lady Gaga plays Harley in Joker 2. I prefer John and Shayera as a couple. Looking forward to JLU #1 by Mark Waid to see if they become a couple. Really enjoying everything both of you do. Hope you both have a great week. Thank you, David.
I loved Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn, and I loved the fact that it was different than what all of us kind of expected, because I think a lot of us were expecting something really different, and two, it was one of my favorite words, refreshing, to actually get a different feel.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you watch the movie, you'll know what I mean by, like, Harley, yes, is quite codependent and everything, but you'll see what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we should do a flip side episode about that film.
I think we're doing Penguin for the next 8 weeks. So
not 8 weeks, it's like 5 weeks.
I think we're gonna.
Anyway, A1ML33Y, hello, Julia Raoul, says, I love Hawkgirl and John in this show. It's a relationship that I want to see go through their limits, and how their breakup made me sad for them in the series Into Justice League Unlimited. I hope we get something like that in the DCU by James Gunn, because I cannot suffer through another terrible live stream Justice League movie. I have a question, Luke and Mary. Will we ever get a Justice League animated series as good as this show? Is DC Warner Brothers capable of making something as good as Justice League Unlimited again with the energy of X-Men 97?
No.
Some people might say that My Adventures with Superman is the show that you are looking for. I don't necessarily agree. I feel like it's more of like an anime-inspired show, and not just in terms of the art style, but also like the storytelling and, I swear almost every episode the solution to their problem is, just be kind to each other, show love, etc., etc.
You heard my answer. My answer was no.
Well, you never know.
It is the best, and that is all.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to Doc Widener.
Thank you so much for your comment, Julie.
Doc Widener says, thank goodness you're here. Shorter comment this week, I think. Yeah, slightly shorter. I just scrolled through it. I got to this late because the wife finally was up to catching up on some of her shows, like The Crown season 6, and half my team is on your side of the pond, albeit in Germany. So work is a bit crazier than usual. Rewatching J-Lass. There we go, someone else using it. And while I see some folks commenting that the Green Lantern Hawkwoman didn't seem like a thing, they sure seemed like it on my watch through. I thought they did a nice job with it. Felt like two workmates trying to figure out if this might work. Cultural question. Are haunted house attractions much of a thing in the UK? Is it more of a US one? Mostly a US thing. It's not unheard of to see one kind of pop up every now and then, but they're not very widespread.
Oh, Doc, where you're at, I was just talking to Luke about this last night, but do you guys have those, it's kind of like haunted hayrides where you go through this like maze, but you have these people that have like the chainsaw without the chain on it and stuff like that. Can I two questions. Do they have those around where you live? And number two, are they allowed to touch you? Because in Oklahoma, they're not.
But they did. Okay, so moving on, sticking with Doc Widener's comment. I say movies, sometimes theatre, though usually when writing I use theatre for movies and theatre going for a play. The distinction is in the spelling. He'll use like the anglicised spelling for a play.
I say movies as well.
When I was in Russia in the mid-2000s, when we adopted our older son, not sure what they used for sweetener in Mountain Dew. I don't think it was cane sugar, and clearly wasn't corn syrup, but was an interesting flavour. Maybe beet sugar. Which reminds me of another question. Do you guys have the zeros in the UK, Coke Zero, etc.? Yes, we do.
It's more popular. I think it's more popular than Diet.
Yeah.
But I will always be a Diet Coke gal. I will be a plus-size Diet Coke gal probably for life.
Had to switch to Diet a decade or so ago and love the newer Zeros so much more than the Diets. Dun dun dun. Weirdly good. Newest flavour I tried is Zero Oreo flavoured Coke.
I have one of those in the fridge that I keep meaning to try.
Sounds potentially awful, ends up really good.
Hold on, let me go get it.
No, she's going to go get it. We'll do a live taste test. All right, Mary's back.
How funny. How
okay.
funny. It tastes just like Coke Zero, obviously, but the aftertaste is the aftertaste you get after you eat an Oreo.
Yeah. It's okay.
I don't hate it. It's just I love Diet Coke.
I don't really like low sugar or no sugar drinks very much.
Or they like fizzy drinks that much either.
I don't mind. I just don't drink. To be honest, I'm just a boring person that mostly drinks water.
No, do you know what this? How funny that this, because the UK one probably tastes a little bit different. Does anybody remember RC Cola? That's what this reminds me of. Yes, it reminds me of RC Cola. I don't know if it's supposed to be like that.
Okay. So continuing the comments, Defuxa Plays left a comment saying one of your chapters here is called Let's Talk Penguin. Did we copy and paste something and forget to change it to today's topic? You don't need to read this out loud. Well, I just did. Yes, highlighting my error. I did reuse some of the details, updated the timestamps, but then forgot to update the description. Now Mary's just messing around with the door.
Letting Gilgil out.
I didn't even know he was in here. All right, so next comment is new commenter, Maria Deal 1244. Hello, Maria. Thank you for leaving a comment. Welcome to this comment section with I was going to say the strange people, but they're not all strange. I'm joking. Me learning Mary grew up in the same state as me for the first time and came to...
Shut up! Oh my gosh! Hi!
And came to many of the same conclusions as me. Oh, I understand why I vibe with her so much, even if I originally came here for the serum leg analysis.
Oh my goodness. If you want, you could like privately DM me and we can have a good chinwag about Oklahoma if you like. And I'll tell you the hometown I'm from. And then I can tell you why I don't like football.
Next we have Michael Dolan, who the name rings a bell, might have left a comment before, but it's been a while, so welcome back if this is not your first time. From what I understand, I'm pretty sure the CH in Kutzbah is pronounced like the CH at the end of John Sebastian Bach.
Bach.
H with a harsh, raspy sound at the back of your throat. So you'd say, hang on, Bach, so Kutzbah, like that. Okay. I'm glad we're having these conversations.
I'm terrible. The reason why I say that out loud, the back. See, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm incapable of doing that. I think it's because I probably had a speech impediment when I was younger that was undiagnosed with learning anything that isn't Southern English.
Kind of the way that Klingons say "gach" is best when served live.
Yuck. Yuck.
Okay, so on to the last comment. I realise now we're over an hour. Whoops.
Who cares?
Last comment in then is from Screenwiper, who says, I wrote like 4 comments and they all disappeared. Maybe you got suspended like Big Mikey P. Nearly a week later, they still haven't shown up, so I guess I got bot effed like Mikey P. Yes, yeah. So I'll put all I remember writing, which is about half of it, in one place. First, I 100% agree with Luke at 628, as I hate that they made Joker 2 a musical. Making things that aren't musicals into musicals pretty much always means an inferior version of it. Musicals are inherently absurd, so they only work as comedies and parodies. Avenue Q is brilliant. It doesn't work in things like drama. Even serious musicals, such as Les Miserables, Phantom of the Opera, Miss Saigon, would benefit from not being musicals. Compare the musical and non-musical version of Sweeney Todd, and the latter is so much better. The show tunes are often little more than filler and spectacle. Michael Bay explosions for the pseudo-intellectual bonces of society. And with how much I read the stuff takes up of Joker 2's runtime, it sounds like an operetta, a great big nothing burger relying on songs and dances to pad out the runtime. I really like the first film, so I'd probably enjoy the second, but I'm certain it won't be anywhere near as good as the first, especially if I'm being more subjective, because it's been made a musical. I read it's tanking at the box office and being panned by critics, fans, and general audiences alike. Good. These awful, obnoxious twats who keep turning things never meant to be musicals into musicals need to be stopped. That was a longer rant on the subject than before, as I've had extra days to think about it. I forgot all my other things, so now it's straight on to chicken news, with a few more days of update. The new hens have been here for nearly a month. They've settled in and become excellent egg layers, especially Doris. They have reached healthy weights and are covering their bald patches with new feathers, despite Wilma plucking them out sometimes. The older hens and the newer hens are all able to hang out in the garden together with only light supervision. Both Betty and Wilma can be very tolerant at times. Today I saw bonding behaviour between Betty and Doris for the first time, as Betty cleaned Doris's beak after they ate some mush together. It's also at other times, they can still be quite intolerant. Betty in particular likes snapping at the little ones. They often try to run to get past her quickly, which only makes Betty feel more threatened and more likely to snap and peck at them. Wilma doesn't snap as often, but when she does, it's worse. Last week they were getting on so well for a few days in a row, I stopped using the partition when they all locked in the aviary together for early morning. On third morning of this, all of Doris's new feathers on her back had been ripped out and she was bleeding. That was almost certainly Wilma, little mother plucker, that she is. Cleaned up the wound, and when the bleeding stopped, I painted Doris's back purple to make her look less appetizing, though given that the hens enjoyed cabbage, this isn't foolproof. Don't feel too sorry for Doris, though. In the days leading up to the attack, she'd been acting very mean to Mabel, especially when Wilma and Betty could see. It's as if to say to them, look at me, I can be a mean girl too, let me join your clique.
We don't like mean girls.
But Wilma and Betty were not impressed. They think she's a wannabe and a poser. Doris even got sent to the brig once. Since getting decked and patched up, though, Doris has been nicer to Mabel, and less scared of, more affectionate to me. The bald patch Wilma made on her back is covered up again, too. Betty's face is healed well from her accident with the back door, and she does have a scar on her beak, but you only see it if you knew it was there. Still got our brushes with death, though, with Betty having a little health scare, possible cancer symptoms, but she seems pretty well again for now. Speculation that Betty won't make it through the winter is large reason why Doris and Mabel were bought. Betty and Wilma came into my kitchen one day uninvited, where Wilma found and tried to eat an elastic band. I pulled it out of her mouth just before she swallowed it. The coop hasn't needed a partition inside for a couple of weeks. They all sleep together peacefully, though until a few days I need to supervise bedtime to stop violence as they were negotiated who sleeps where. There's less need now, and the bigger, older hens let the younger, smaller hens catch up with them sometimes. Ah, yes. usually in pairs of Betty and Mabel and Wilma and Doris. Integrating 2 groups of hens can take a month, so that my babies have come this far in a month is brilliant, and I'm very proud of them. I know my training methods played a big part, but it's not all me. It's also the hens being good girls and clever girls. Right.
Clever cha-cha.
That's all of the comments. So, all that's left to do, Mary, any final plugs you want to make before we talk about what's next time?
Keep an eye out on my channel in the next couple of weeks, because I am going to be recording the voiceover for a video about one of the X-Men.
The who?
And I'm gonna say this, it's not Magneto. Surprisingly.
Well, I was surprised to see some people saying, oh, it's going to be Jubilee, oh, it's going to be Beast. I'm like, really? Really?
But now I do. I'm like, shoot, should I have done Jubilee or Beast? Yeah. Head over to my channel every Monday. If you want to see us talk about the Penguin TV show.
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday. It depends on if we get time to record it that day, but it will be either Monday or Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also keep an eye out on Serum Lake, because I think he's a cool guy, and he's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. I've been given an advanced copy of a series of books that contain interviews with all of the creative people behind Batman the Animated Series, including a lot of people that you never really hear from, like individual background painters or some of the executives at Fox and Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And these interviews go back to 1993. I think that was the earliest interview in there. Might have been 1992. And my God, it's such a wonderful resource. I'll talk more about this in the future, obviously. But the first volume, there are 5 volumes. The first volume is 800 pages, so it's taking me a while to get through the whole thing and just absorb all of the information. But there are some wonderful anecdotes in there and some unseen treasures that have never seen the light of day before. My favourite one that I've seen was a T-shirt Bruce Timm had printed with a mock version of Network Notes that were critiquing the famous censorship in Batman the Animated Series drawing he did. You know, the Batman strangling the Joker as he dives through a window with a naked Catwoman who's smoking a cigarette as an endangered child, as Batman's got a big bullet hole in him. But yes, that was very funny. I'm going to talk more about that book once I finish the first volume. First volume's coming out on the 15th of November, so I've got time. But I'll hopefully, in the next week or two, I'll have something put together to talk about that, and I'll direct you to where you could buy it yourself if you are that way inclined. Okay, Mary, so have you decided what we're going to talk about next week?
Next week, we are going to answer this question.
Okay.
Who does it better, Clark or Bruce?
Oh! Is that a question for Lois Lane? Oh!
Who is the better detective?
Oh, that's easy.
Who is the better superhero?
Easy.
Yeah, so we're gonna go and we're just gonna talk about who we think has the better skills in which areas and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. You heard it here first.
Yeah, and it's not just them being reporters and detectives. It's also them being best friends. I love you guys. Thank you so much, and have a really wonderful day. And if you're not, just remember, my cat wakes me up at 1 a.m. a lot.
Yeah, that's really going to boost their mood.